Hi, Nolly. This is your mission here. The first thing I noticed was your random fighters groups that you have here. So I see you have four different fighter types, and they all go to this single waypoint. They don't have the connection. Oh, I see. I guess it's only a single waypoint to each random place, which I guess is kind of cool. Um, However, I have a different way of doing this. Not saying what you've done for this patrol stuff is bad, but I have a different way of doing it. So I'll show you that in just a second. The other thing is I only looked at just one group, okay, one objective. In particular, I looked at this armored battalion group, and I'll show you some of the changes I made. So again, we're still looking at just yours. So the first thing I noticed is you have a lot of like group structure, which is good to have group structure so you can sort of drill into different pieces of your objective here. But I think you went just a little bit too far with the grouping. Um, like as an example, if I want to drill into look at your AA, I gotta like go almost 4 steps in before I can see just this vehicle. So I think your grouping is just a little bit too much. We could bring it down a little bit. And as a matter of fact, when I first started doing all of my grouping, I wanted it to be very organized too. And I think as a matter of fact, Alonzo was one of the few people who was like, hey, I think you're grouping too much. You should not group as much as you're doing. The next thing I noticed is that you don't have an on attack message, so I will I'll show you how I'm doing my on attack message and how we can change that. So I'll show you that in a second. The other thing is you have this sort of single counter for 35 objects, and not that that's the wrong way to do things. It's definitely not the wrong way to do things. But in my opinion, it's very hard to maintain the mission file for in the future with only a single counter. Now I know you have a counter for your structures here, and then this leads into that 35 counter, and then you have another one for your vehicles right here, which also leads into that 35 counter, but I'll show you a different way of doing it, not that the way you're doing it's wrong. And then the last thing, yeah, so that should be it. So we're going to talk about how I'm doing my destroy stuff versus how you're doing yours, how we're doing the attack command stuff, and how I'm going to set up the planes to come and assist whenever stuff gets attacked. So um, we're going to go ahead and load up my version of your mission here, and I've only worked on this one objective. So take just a second. Oh, and the whole thing crashes. Wonderful. I am totally not shocked at all. All right, so give me just a second. We'll load it up here. The other thing too is I think a lot of your objectives in this particular mission are way too close to the airfields. So we can either move the airfields away or we can move the objectives. And I personally think it's going to be easier to move the airfields. That way you can sort of keep that ship, the ports in the ships in the port at oh, I forget where they are. Hello, move the camera. This thing right here, your ship's target. I think it's perfectly fine where it is, but this airfield is way too close to those ships. I think you should probably move this airfield down over here. And then the same thing for all these guys. You have these two airfields that are very close to these objectives. And I think if you just push those airfields back, maybe right here, it might be better. So these two airfields pushed back, or even further, maybe just right here or something, like one right there and one right there. I don't know, but it should be pushed for the airfields. Probably should be moved away from your objectives. Okay, so let's take a look at my version of our battalion. So the first thing you'll notice is I don't have all those um, green lines all over the place because I basically got rid of all of your randomized fighter stuff. And so let's talk about how I'm doing the randomized fighter things. So just like what you have for your AAA, I have something similar. So I'm going to go into my AAA here. and here is my check zones. We're going to drill into that, and very similar to what you have, but mine's a little bit cleaner. I have the seam sort of inside, so when the players come inside this yellow circle, the AAA activates or spawns in. But I also have um, these planes, and so let me show you that. So I'm going to go back into our group here, and I have these what I call QRF, and it stands for Quick Reaction Force planes. And in my case, I just have two, and I'm using just standard Spit 5, but you can use whatever plane you want. And so what happens is once a player enters that check zone, this gate fires off. The gate will hit this switch, which will deactivate, so that if another player comes in or anything like that, the switch is deactivated. Nothing can happen. Then 2 minutes later, these two planes will spawn in randomly from this location here, and I'm just using the same four-way switch that Jim TM created for us, and basically that's that logic. And so as soon as they spawn in, oops, click out of it. There we go. So as soon as they spawn in, they'll immediately hit this attack area. And so this attack area, you can see here, is this little tiny circle. So basically, any planes that are in this area basically are going to you're going to get attacked. They're going to get shot up by this quick reaction force. And then if the players kill that quick reaction force, so we have this counter here, right? So they kill both the planes. Oops, needs to be reset. If they kill both the planes, then 1 minute later, it will reactivate and then they can spawn in again. Here's the caveat though. Let's say something goes wrong. Maybe because it's unkilled. Maybe they shot one down and another one crashed into the plane. Whatever, stuff happens. So you have sort of this catch-all that if this doesn't happen and it doesn't destroy it, but we do get a 2 count on here, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and delete the planes anyway, and then fire off that 1 minute timer again and reset the switch. So this is basically just a catch-all that says, hey, if stuff doesn't go right, delete these planes anyway and start the QRF process over. So that's that. And now we don't have to worry about a lot of waypoints and logic and all that, and it's very minimalized. And you can use that QRF system everywhere, right? You can use it on all the objectives. And really and truly, players want to fight at the objectives, I think, right? It might be cool to see a plane set, somewhere between objectives. That's cool too. But I think if we say, oh, I'm attacking this stuff, and yes, AAA shooting at you and stuff like that, but 2 minutes later, there's more planes in the area now. You got to fight those planes off. That's a lot of fun to me. So the other thing I've done is I didn't change any of your values for your objectives or for your targets here, your entities, but I did change the way we're doing the damage. So what do I mean by that? So I have this logic right here going into this single gate, and then from there that single gate goes into our buildings destroyed counter, and then from there it goes into single gate, and then we have our total objects destroyed, and then it goes into your typical thing, deactivate and activate of destroyed. But let's talk about these things. Okay, so I was looking at your logic here, your entities, and it looks like you basically copy pasted these 4 tent entities, right? This camp tents 2, and you pasted it all over the place. So what I did is I said, okay, when I destroy these tents, right? So when a player destroys them, so we have that tent being destroyed, that tent being destroyed, that tent being destroyed, and then that tent being destroyed, right? Oh, it needs to be 0. Sorry. So there we go. So it's four objects destroyed. I'll do it again. 0, 1, oops, 2, and 3. So you can see it's 4 objects being destroyed. So in reality, with these 3 sets, it's 12, right? 4, 8, 12. So what I've done is I said, okay, they need to destroy 8 out of the 12. So that's 75%, right? 8 out of the 12. And then 8 out of these 12, 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 and so on and so forth, right? 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. And then you have these bomb shelters, and actually I probably need to increase it. So the bomb shelters are 2, 4, 6, and 8. So I have it right here now at 2, but we can change that probably to, what did I say, it was 8, so we'll say maybe half of them, right? And the nice thing about this is I can adjust this value, and it won't matter. So let's say maybe I want them to kill all 12 of these and not the rest, and we'll change this back to 12. And I don't need to worry about this one or this one right here, right? Because this one is just going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So out of the 11 of the objectives that they need to kill, 11 of the sets. So this is a set right here, this is a set right here, set right here. Your bomb shelters are a set. Here's another set, so on. So out of the sets, they need to destroy 9 sets, and then that will count towards the total needed. Same thing for our vehicles, and of course, I added the gas trucks here, but you can, not have you can have that as a completely separate entity object that needs to be destroyed. But I did think that you wanted them to destroy the KV4s and the tanks as well. So I added those as a set, right? So all these KV-141 tanks are all a set, right? And so out of all the tanks that are KV4s, KV-14s or whatever, 41s, they only need to kill 2 of them. And then the same thing for the tanks. These T-34s, you need to kill 4 of those, and 4 trucks. And I think that's fair. It might be a little bit too easy now. And the nice thing is you can go back and be like, oh, you know what? I want them to be able to kill 3 tanks. And he changes to 3, and it's perfectly fine. And it's much easier to maintain it and to adjust values later, right? So as players go, and I think, as a matter of fact, Drake was like, hey, this objective is a little bit too hard, and this one's too easy. And you're like, okay, 35, do I change it to 34? Maybe I change it to 32. This is easier, right? You're like, oh, I have a set of tents, and I have that set at 8. Okay, fine. I'm gonna leave all my sets at 8. Or maybe you're like, you know what? Out of all the sets, I don't want them to destroy 9. That's too much. Maybe I want them to destroy 7 out of the 11 sets there. And now we made it even easier. Or maybe they need to destroy all the sets. And now it's a little bit harder, right? It's actually going to be much harder now. But still, we're being fair and saying, hey, you don't have to destroy everything of each set. You only have to destroy 75% of each set. So this is a lot easier to deal with the on-destroyed logic, right? Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is, and of course I got it going to our gate, total counter, and then our destroyed. This is the same destroyed message you have here. We have a 1-second timer. It goes to these 2 deactivates. So our first deactivate will get rid of your original armored battalion camp icon that you have here. And then we're going to activate a new one that says exactly the same thing, but it has the word destroyed on it. And other mission designers will have it like an X. I know Alonso likes to do that in Combat Box. And you can do whatever you want with the icons. You don't even need to have any of these icons. You can just leave it the way you had it before. Just something nice to add. Okay, so that's on destroyed. The next one I talk about is on attack. Now you didn't have any on attack at all in your logic. So for mine is all I did was go to our object filter here. I cleared out our objects and I selected blocks. And the reason I selected blocks is because almost all of your assets here are blocks. And then once I have all the objects selected, then I can go and say on damaged to our gate in right here. And of course it's already set up. So we have a gate in, then we have a disable switch, then we have a message switch, then we have a 2.5 minute timer that goes to this activate. And then from there, as soon as 2 minutes fires off, we have our 4-way random switch, which you've seen before. So we'll go ahead and group this up. This is our 4-way randomizer switcher, right? And then from there we have 4 different messages. And then just say all the same thing. Hey, we're under attack, or we need assistance. Hey, we need help from any available pilots, and so on and so forth, right? So what happens is players will do damage to this target right here, right? as soon as one of these objects or these entities takes damage, it'll hit this gate. The gate will check to see if this is disabled, which will happen only if it's been destroyed. So we have this deactivate going into that disabled. So we're disabling this timer. If the object or the whole objective has been destroyed, then this will be disabled and no more logic will pass through that timer. This timer blocks off everything else, right? So if it's not disabled, which it probably won't be, then it'll go to our message switch. Our message switch will fire and immediately disable, meaning that if a player attacks another object, it won't matter because this is still disabled. So no other logic will pass through this. However, 2.5 minutes later, we'll have an activate. So to reactivate this message switch, meaning that if players are still there 2.5 minutes later, they do another damage, then yes, the message will fire again. And then deactivate itself, and 2.5 minutes later, and so on and so forth. So then our 2.5 minutes timer fires off, and then it sends to our four-way, and our four-way chooses one of these 4 different messages, whichever one, it's random, right? And it makes it unique because players don't always hear the same, hey, we're under attack, hey, we're under attack, hey, we're under attack. Every 2.5 minutes, they'll hear something slightly different. And of course, you can add as many randomizations as you want to that. So this is just a cool way of doing our on attack. Finally, I changed your AA, your anti-air, and the only reason I changed it was one because and I'm not saying that your anti-air is wrong or whatever, but my anti-air is using spawners, and you can totally do the spawn system, or you can do activate and deactivate. It doesn't matter. So here on our spawners, what we're doing is we're saying when the players enter the field, they hit the switch. The switch will spawn in our vehicles, and if the players kill the vehicles, that's this on-killed event, then we're disabling this timer right here, meaning that nothing will happen past this timer. So the next time the players come, and it'll check to see, oh, is this disabled? Is this switch disabled? Okay, then never spawn in the vehicles at all. Now when the players leave the area, we'll wait 3 seconds and then we'll delete the vehicles. And again, I'm not sure if it's better to have spawn in or activate. It's just the way I like things, and it's nice and neat. And then we have our check zones, which are also nice and neat and organized. And then we have our vehicles here, and you can see they're not like drilled deep into each of the groups. They're just in their own AAA group, so it's easy to get to them and work on them. And each one of the AAA also has its own AAA attack area MCU. And the reason being for that is players will typically, this happens in TAL a lot, players will typically fly around the objective, making the AAA shoot at them. But the nice thing about this is if they do that, then these other, let's say the player is over here, this AAA will probably fire at that player, but these other 5 will not. They will look for a different target. They'll all act on their own. And the nice thing about that is if we go to our vehicles here, and I'm doing object filter again, we can go into each vehicle and we can set the AI level of each vehicle to something different. See, yeah, this one's normal, this one up here is high. And so what that does is this one's at high. What that does is it makes it so sometimes the AA will shoot the player right away. Sometimes the AA will wait because they're lower intelligence level and stuff, and so on and so forth, right? And so it makes it unique about how the AA will sort of attack the player, and it makes it better, it makes it fun, right? The last thing I've done about the AA is in early war, and this is just my opinion, I've seen other mission designers do this too, is the AA is all axis vehicles. Maybe you don't want to do that, and that's okay, but the reason I do that is twofold. One, I think the allied vehicles are too easy, and 2, it levels the playing field for both sides, so no one can go, oh, You know, the allied stuff is too easy to kill, and the Axis stuff is too hard. No, it's the same AAA across the board. Now, of course, when we get into late war, some of the allied anti-air seems to be more powerful than even the Axis stuff, but it's just a balancing act. And I think players are never going to fly by, at least in any of my missions, and go, "Oh, you know what? That is a German flag. Oh my gosh, how did I not know that?" You know. And you're like, nope, nope, nope. Players never know. They never, you know. And it's all about the illusion and making it fun. And so players never have said anything to me about any of that. Okay, so we talked about our damage and how to set it up so it's easier to maintain. We talked about a four-way random switch. We talked about our QRF planes. We talked about AAA. Oops. AAA. And I got one last thing. This is just a nice to have, and you don't need to add it necessarily. So what I did is I added some like ammo boxes to the area, and this is just like aesthetic things, right? And so let's just get rid of these arrows here so you can see what it looks like. And you can see here I've added like little sandbags around our ammo boxes or our big old bombs, right? We just little sandbags. I added some sandbags around these crates, and I added these little ammo boxes right here, or crates, or whatever you want to call it. So when players are flying by, they're like, "Oh, that's pretty cool." Oh, I need to fix the A. They're not showing up, but that's all right. And then the other thing is these tents right here are very close to these buildings. So when Drake hit these tents, most likely the splash damage hit this. So what I've done there is, let me show you here, bring all this back, is I went into your scenes, and then I went into the city, and then I selected this group right here, and just this particular building right here, just this one. So that's this set, right? This set right here. I made it a linked entity and set it as Russian, and then I've also done the same thing for these buildings over here. So I'll show you that. Go back to this guy right here, and you can see I've also just set these buildings just in case they bomb somewhere and they hit some of these guys. We're still going to give them. We're not going to give them credit for the objective, but we're not going to give them the you know, hey, you've attacked friendlies message. So that way it won't happen. Now, of course, they bomb some of this stuff. They're going to get that friendly message because that is pretty far away from the objective. And the same thing for any of these buildings. If they hit these buildings, then they're going to get that message as well. But I think it's fair to say, hey, if you hit these two buildings, well, that's collateral damage. It's part of the war, man. But we won't give the player that friendly fire message with that. All right, so that is it. I know this is a very long video, but hopefully it's helpful to you. I will give you this file and let you do what you want with it, and by all means take complete credit for everything. That's fine by me. Again, thanks for watching. Thanks for letting me fly on the RS server and let me give you some feedback on your mission. Have a good one, man.